Get the sunny spells, temperatures lifting, largely the mid to high teens, perhaps 19 or 20 across southern parts of England and Wales. Into the evening time on Wednesday, the cloud starts to melt away again. We see largely dry nights, still some rain and drizzle affecting central and northern parts of Scotland, but generally light and patchy in nature. A few mist and fog patches again developing towards the end of the night, and temperatures under those clear spells perhaps dipping into single figures. So a dry start for most of us on Thursday morning, a grey start in places, but the sunshine soon reappears. There'll be plenty of dry weather to come for many, even though the sun might be a bit hazy at times. But a weak weather front will move into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland, to give a few splashes of rain here. And again, temperatures high teens to low 20s. Perhaps a few more showers around Friday, but Saturday's looking dry and temperatures again high teens, low 20s.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, Tory Britain has become an immigration nation, and with the Home Office privately predicting another 1.1 million foreign nationals will arrive legally next year. When will the Prime Minister finally act on his tough talk?
Let's be honest, our system is broken. We do not have control of our borders. This is a genuine emergency and must be addressed.
I'll demand urgent action on our broken immigration system in my digest next. Then my superstar panel weigh-in. Tonight, I'm joined by Amanda Patel, Making his debut, the Conservative commentator Armand Bogle and Rebecca Reid. Also on the way, Downing Street has rejected this honest assessment from Britain's Brexit hero.
Brexit has failed. We've not delivered on borders. We've not delivered on Brexit. The Tories have let us down very, very badly.
So, after making all the headlines today, what is Nigel Farage's prescription for saving our exit from the EU before it's too late? He joins me live shortly. Whether it's Brexit, borders or taxes, Sunak isn't particularly popular with his party right now. So former Chief Secretary to the Treasury and Truss ally Simon Clarke is one of the many outraged Tory MPs. He's going to join me live in the studio to make a plea for the PM to ditch his latest anti-growth tax raid that's set to punish millions by dragging them into the higher rate. His rallying call for the Conservative spirit to return coming up later in the show. Elsewhere tonight, ITV was plunged into deeper crisis today after revelations this morning hemorrhaged 170,000 viewers in a week, and the on-air awkwardness showed no signs of abating.
People tell you that Aquarians, on their worst days, will dilly-dally and not make a decision, right? It's a very Aquarian thing.
I think he might be onto something there. So should ITV counteract the Scove-fueled switch-off by removing one of the hosts? The show's relationship expert, Louise van der Helder, who's had her own awkward encounters with Philip on the sofa, takes on PR guru Mark Bukowski and former Apprentice star Amy Ansell in the clash. Meghan Markle is just hours away from receiving another bogus award, this time alongside the Black Votes Matter co-founder. But as the runaway royals break cover to dine out with their A-list celebrity pals, is this the start of the Sussex PR assault that Tom Bauer hinted at last week on the show? The esteemed royal biographer offers his unmissable insight in Uncancelled. Also on the way with a damning new report finding that 1 in 10 UK children now want to change their gender and a third are being taught that a woman can have a penis. Megyn Kelly has called out celebrity Charlize Theron for encouraging this extreme ideology.
We love you, Queen.
We love you, Queen.
We're in your corner and we've got you, and I will anybody up who's like trying to with anything with you guys.
So why doesn't Charlize Theron come and me up?
Megyn's going to take on the Hollywood star who played her in the blockbuster movie Bombshell. That's later this hour. As ever, stay tuned too for tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press, brand new Greatest Britain Union Jackass, named before the night is out as well. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. You're watching GB News, Britain's news channel. My digest coming up. But first, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. Downing Street says the EU and the UK have agreed to strengthen their cooperation on international migration and the threat posed by Russia in Ukraine. Rishi Sunak and the Dutch Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, have agreed to work to build an international coalition to provide Ukraine with combat air capabilities, including supporting training to procuring F-16 fighter jets. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky joined the council via video link and stressed the urgency for stronger air power against Russian aggression.
There is still much to be done. Ukraine's territory is big, and to make air defense results like last night's the rule throughout the country, we need additional air defense systems and missiles. We also need modern fighter jets, without which no air defense system will be perfect. And I'm sure we will get there.
Well, the Prime Minister has been addressing the Council of Europe as well, saying the world's most vulnerable people are paying the price for unlawful migration. He's been telling world leaders the international system for policing human trafficking isn't working. That's as the government tries to implement the illegal migration bill here at home, and that is currently going through the House of Lords. The new law aims to tackle small boat crossings, sending asylum seekers back home or to a third country like Rwanda.
Illegal migration exploits the most vulnerable. It risks crowding out those with a genuine case for asylum. And it strains the trust that our citizens have, not just in our domestic borders, but in the international system. And that's why so many of us are already acting at the national level, and why we need to do more. to cooperate across borders and across jurisdictions, to end illegal migration and stop the boats.
Rishi Sunak speaking in Iceland earlier on today. Well, in news here at home, 2 poultry workers in England have tested positive for bird flu, although there are no signs of human-to-human transmission. Both cases are believed to be linked to the same farm. The UK Health Security Agency is running a programme of testing workers who've come into contact with the infected birds and launched an investigation. Test results show one of the workers infected is likely to have been contaminated after inhaling the virus. It's unclear if the second person was contaminated after inhalation or whether they were affected another way. 3 men who supplied fake passports to criminals have been jailed today. Anthony Beard, Christopher Zitek and Alan Thompson helped murderers and drug dealers evade justice. Beard, who paid vulnerable people for their expired documents, was sentenced to 6 years and 8 months in prison. His accomplices will serve a combined term of 11 years. And lastly, Essex Police is investigating an allegation of serious sexual assault concerning the Solihull MP Julian Knight. It follows a referral by Scotland Yard and comes after the Met Police dropped its investigation into a claim more than a month ago. Mr Knight, who's been stripped of the Conservative Party whip, has denied what he's described as a false and malicious accusation. He doesn't plan to run at the next election. That's all from me. I'm back in an hour. Now back to Dan.
The Conservatives pledged before the 2019 general election to get the overall numbers of migrants down as a key benefit of Brexit. So too, by the way, did the now Prime Minister Rishi Sunak during his failed campaign to become Tory leader last summer.
We have to talk about immigration. Let's be honest, our system is broken. We do not have control of our borders. The current chaotic free-for-all is simply no way for a serious country to run itself. This is a genuine emergency and must be addressed. I don't care if you believe that migration should be high or low. Surely we can all agree that it must be legal, orderly, and controlled. At the moment, it's none of those things.
And even after taking charge of the party in an anti-democratic coup, he was still talking the talk.
Voted for Brexit. I believe in Brexit. And I know that Brexit can deliver, and is already delivering, enormous benefits and opportunities for the country. Migration being an immediate one, where we have proper control of our borders and are able to have a conversation with the country about the type of migration that we want and need. Right? We weren't able to do that inside the European Union. At least now we are in control of it.
But the horrifying reality is that under Tory rule, Britain has become an immigration nation, against the overwhelming will of the people. Taking back control of our borders never meant quadrupling the number of those entering the country for good, right? However, that is the disturbing reality we are now facing. A bombshell Daily Telegraph front page splash today revealed that the Home Office privately predicts a further sharp rise in immigration by the next election, with an influx of another 1.1 million foreign workers and students projected in 2024. Now, I understand that the Alternative government, a Labour-led socialist coalition from hell, wants to throw open the borders altogether. But those forthcoming numbers are hardly going to motivate the Conservative base to bother to vote at all. Our immigration system, both legal and illegal, is broken. As Suella Braverman's mentor, the Tory MP John Hayes, said last night, you can't grow your population at the size of several cities without breaking up the UK's economy and society. And while she's been lambasted for her NatCon speech, which has been described as a prospective leadership bid, who can disagree with the Home Secretary on this?
I voted and campaigned for Brexit. Indeed, I'm a proud Spartan, because I wanted Britain to control migration, so that we all have a say on what works for our country. We need to get overall immigration numbers down. Brexit enables us to build a high-skilled, high-wage economy that is less dependent on low-skilled foreign labour. That was our 2019 manifesto pledge, and it's what we must deliver. It's not racist for anyone, ethnic minority or otherwise, to want to control our borders.
Absolutely, Home Secretary, but what is your government going to do about it then? This is acutely urgent so close to an election. We voted to gain control of our borders. We voted for net migration to come down into the tens of thousands. What we've got is the opposite of that. And that's a breach of our collective trust that could shake our entire political system. But to respond now, my superstar panel, top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, making his debut, the Conservative commentator Armand Bogle, and the author and broadcaster Rebecca Reed. So, Amanda Platel, what on earth is going on with the Conservative Party and migration? When you look at what Rishi Sunak was promising last summer, these numbers don't make any sense.
I mean, I did jot down, our system is broken and everything's will be sorted out. I've had a really bad day, Dan, OK? Can I just tell you? Really bad day. And this story is even making me more depressed. What the Tories promised to do was they promised through Brexit we'd control our borders. They said that they would reduce migration, legal or otherwise. Now we learn they've got 1 million+ people who are going to be coming in this year and or in the year to the election. They are sunk. There is no way back for them. They're sunk like one of those boats on the Channel. Rishi Sunak has betrayed every single promise that was ever made to us. And, this ludicrous law that they have, which says that if you're a student coming in from, India or Australia or wherever, and you're studying, movies or media at some university, you can bring your whole damn family. How can it possibly be right that when we bring someone in, I understand the economics of bringing in students to study here because we charge them a bloody fortune, but that doesn't mean you can bring, Uncle Bob and, every other person in the family. The whole thing is broken. Rishi Sunak does not have a chance of winning the next election.
Well, look, I'm sorry you've had a terrible day. It's going to improve now.
I hope so,
because
Dan.
you're with us.
You're
with us, and we're going to get through the next 2 hours tomorrow together. And how could it be any better, given that you have Armand Bogle next to you? Now, Armand, you're obviously a proud member of the Conservative Party. No, it looks beautiful. You're a proud member of the Conservative Party. It's great to have you here.
Yes.
But do you feel disillusioned?
Well, I think, look, as the Prime Minister said last summer, it is a genuine emergency. And I think we have to be very clear that the people voted to take back control of our borders, of our immigration system, and to make sure we have control of our visa system. Now, that's something I think we do not have control of, because, let's be honest, from 2019, before the pandemic, 16,000 dependents came in for students. And last year, 135,000.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
How big are their families?
Now, the bigger issue here is, and I was absolutely gobsmacked when I first saw this. So in the West, there are only two countries, a major country that is, English-speaking countries, the United States and the UK, who are providing student visas without the requirement to be proficient in the English language.
Yeah, which is a really important point.
So now that underscores, I think, a big issue that we have in terms of, well, first of all, if you're coming to a British university, how are you going to be able to study in the English medium if you're not proficient in English? And our 20 universities across the UK advertising it openly around the world. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And look, you're making such an important point, because we're not talking about illegal immigration. We're talking about legal immigration. Rebecca, you want to throw open our borders, don't you? So presumably you're one of these lefties who say more, more, more. A million's not enough for you, is it?
Well, just shy of 600, just shy of
560,000 can't do numbers leave as well. So it's not 1 million on top of everything.
No, it is. It's a million. It's net migration. We're talking about net migration. Now, they are projected figures that the Daily Telegraph have revealed via the Home Office.
Go on, Rebecca, admit that even that makes you choke.
That
Go
is
on.
quite a lot of people.
Admit it.
No, I do accept that there's quite a lot of people. What I would say
and we've got folk who can't get into hospitals now. We've got a housing crisis.
But part of that is that you need people to do things like drive HGV lorries and be nurses and be care staff, and those are jobs that are very often taken by people who come in as a result of immigration. We do need that specific skill set, and a lot of British people don't want
but what about
Aman's?
What Aman's talking about? He's talking about students who can't even speak English, being able to bring their families.
That's a money-making scheme by the universities. A load of universities got shut down, 5, 6 years ago, because they were basically, you turn up on registration day and then you don't have to come back for 3 years, and they weren't teaching anybody anything. But that's universities behaving badly.
Is net migration of 1 million a year out of control, Rebecca?
I mean, I just don't feel any impact day to day. I really don't. I don't feel any impact.
You're privileged here.
7 million,
privileged here.
7 million people on the waiting list. What do you think when all these people come in who've not paid the taxes, not invested in the country, and they go straight into schools, they go straight into the NHS,
could you really look a child,
and the people who've lived here all their lives
Amanda,
are shoved back.
But if there's an actual child, if a child is sitting in front of you going, I just want to go to school, could you really look a child in the eye and be like, you don't deserve an education?
Well,
or
it's
if
not just about that, though,
like,
is it?
needs an operation, could you really look them in the eye and be like,
it's not just about
that. I'd say get in the queue and wait before the people who...
Final word, Aman.
Well, I think, look, it's about the child. When the parent of that child cannot speak in English and relate to the teacher the education that child deserves, what do you do then?
And the child will pick up English very quickly and will learn.
But what about the parent who can't
very
communicate
quickly
with the teacher?
But I'm talking about the specific... I'm talking about children. I'm talking about children who come here and need education.
Yes, but what about the welfare of that child when their parent cannot communicate with the teacher?
Not putting them in school doesn't improve their welfare, does it?
I had to learn to speak English before I came into the country.
You're still trying. Amanda Patel, Aman Vogel, Rebecca Reid, thank you so much, my superstar panel. They're with me all night. But coming up, as Downing Street denies Nigel Farage's claim that Brexit has failed because politicians like Rishi Sunak have failed to capitalise on its endless benefits, how would Nigel Farage save our exit from the EU before it's too late? He joins me shortly. But up next in The Clash, crisis at ITV was embroiled in fresh chaos today after revelations its flagship this morning lost 170,000 viewers in just a week, thanks to Holly and Philip's dramatic fallout. So should ITV counteract the Schofield switch-off by removing one of the hosts? And who should go? The show's relationship expert Louise van der Helder, who has her own awkward moments with Phil, battles it out with PR guru Mark Bukowski and former Apprentice star Amy Ansell. But I want to know what you think on this. Dan at gbnews.uk. Vote in our poll. Who's got to go? Holly or Philly? Philly. What's his name? Philip. That's coming up in The Clash straight after this.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nigel Farage and Megyn Kelly coming up this hour, but it's time now for The Clash. And ITV was plunged further into crisis today after Revelation's flagship show This Morning lost 170,000 viewers in a week amid the bitter row between Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby. Viewers switched off as scandal hit. Schofield continues to front the programme despite furious fans demanding he's axed, with top celebrity guests also understood to be boycotting in protest. It comes as Holly herself cut all ties with Philip off camera, wiping him from her social media in order to protect her own glittering career and telling friends she's happy to present the show alone. And as she mulls over her This Morning future while Schofield is still around, here's the moment a guest astrologer name-checked Holly today while talking about needing to be decisive during times where she can't cope.
You're an Aquarian metal ox, Pat, and the reason you're Holly's an Aquarian and you're an Aquarian. Holly will tell you that Aquarians, on their worst days, will dilly-dally and not make a decision, right? It's a very Aquarian thing. And so and this is what the Aquarian is worrying about everything. Oh, I can't cope with this, I can't cope with that.
What do you think? As This Morning loses 170,000 viewers, is it time for ITV to intervene and remove one of the hosts? And who should it be? Who's got to go, Philip or Holly? Email me, dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me and vote in our poll at GB News on Twitter. Those results coming up. But debating this now is the brand and PR guru, Mark Bukowski, one woman who's no stranger to the This Morning sofa with dozens of appearances under her belt on the show, the TV relationship expert Louise van der Veld, and the former Apprentice contestant and social commentator Amy Ansel. So, Louise, look, it's great to see you here. I've seen you many a time on the This Morning table or the sofa giving advice on relationships. But you say your relationship with Philip was not always good, and you say he could sometimes be a bit of a bully and intimidating. Talk to me about your experiences on the show, Louise.
Hi, Dan. How are you doing? Hi, guys. Yeah, I mean, you know, my outlook has always been to go in wherever I am, be respectful to people, and you kind of expect the same sort of treatment back. With Phil, I mean, I believe he's like the monster of daytime TV, to be honest. He's rude. He's like, people should be sit still, speak when you're spoken to. Just a very almost aggressive attitude. No matter how nice I've gone in, you know, I just feel like he's arrogant, you know, and then he comes on camera and he's all smiles and all jolly. You know, and I know it's like, I've been challenged. I've been challenged by Jeremy Vale. I've been challenged by on the Doctor's Show in the US. I don't mind, you know, a bit of controversy. It's like you challenge your guests, you know, Dan, but you're polite and you're lovely to everybody. You know, you've got a really good reputation for being a nice guy. And quite frankly, he's just a fake. And I think it is time that he really got the boot. I mean, I'm used to working with lovely people, like I say, they treat you respectfully. Mickey Flanagan, who was another one, you know, you can have a laugh and some banter, but he's judgy. And I went on that show many, many times, like you said, and I'm speaking about honesty, integrity, and alignment in relationships. Okay, people have affairs. That's been a big topic of mine. But I believe we should be honest and open. And for him to have scowled at me the amount of times he has and looked down his nose at me with his judgy attitude, when quite frankly he's been a closet gay doing everything behind the scenes, I think it's about time that he stopped having this privileged position, and it's definitely not Holly that should be going. She's lovely. She's got this warm, sisterly love almost. I don't know how she's put up with him this long, to be honest, Dan.
Very strong words there. Amy Ansell, you're an ally of Philip Schofield, but how do you feel hearing that from Louise, who's actually had the experience of working on that show? And by the way, Louise isn't alone. Amanda Holden, Fern Britton, Gemma Collins, Francine Lewis, Kim Woodburn, lots of women speak about having this experience with Philip Schofield.
Well, listen, she said that he was rude, he was aggressive. I think he was just being professional. I mean, the fact that she felt that way is how she felt versus what he was trying to do. But I want to address something very interesting, which is the ratings plunge of 170,000 viewers over the past week. The thing the reporter does not mention in the article is that the 894,000 viewers were watching when it was a bank holiday Monday during the coronation weekend. And the thing is, a week later, of course the ratings are going to go down and fluctuate 20%. That's normal. Everyone's back at work. And I think it's very interesting that they happen to use the Monday of the bank holiday weekend, coronation weekend. And this Monday, I thought that was ridiculous.
OK, fair point. Mark Bukowski, you're an expert in dealing with these sorts of situations, celebrities in trouble. If you were representing Philip Schofield right now, would you say there was a way to turn it around?
I'm not so sure, Dan. I think, look, this pairing doesn't feel authentic any longer, and I think that's what people need. And clearly there are some differences. The positive body language is a must when you have something that's going to spend, a partnership that's going to spend so much time in the home. You know, perhaps it's time for a reboot of This Morning. ITV are very cute. Let's not forget that people were calling the death knell for This Morning when we had Q-Gate, when these two supposedly jumped the queue. That didn't kill off the show, didn't kill off the partnership, and we found out that over 700 journalists had jumped the queue, so they weren't the only ones. They're pretty strident in making decisions about this, and finding there's a whole host of people who could take up the reins of this show. Dermot O'Leary, Alison, you know, there's been some good people. It's every crisis there's an opportunity for ITV to rethink this show, and I think part of the problem is that they both have very powerful agents. They both have, you know, adept sort of publicists, and you don't really know what the truth of this is. There's a lot of noise, but the story is abating. You know, for the last 2 days, it's been what everybody's been talking about, and now it's filtering off. But if they don't get on, and if they can't settle their differences privately, and if the relationship is broke, then obviously it's time to refresh the show. Why not?
Louise, could I just ask you, I'm hearing from a lot of A-list celebrities and other people who regularly appear on This Morning who are starting to boycott the show now and saying to their agents, we will not appear while Philip is presenting. Is that the same as you? Will you be boycotting the show while Philip is presenting?
Absolutely. And I feel like, just to go back to what the lady here said about it being something to do with my feelings or emotions, I think I'm probably one of the most thick-skinned people on the planet. And it's really not about my emotions. I don't react and I still be polite and pleasant. It takes a lot more than that. But the point being, he's rude and he's arrogant. And who should, and all nice and smarmy is probably a good word to describe him. And there's just no need to be so disrespectful. I wouldn't be surprised if everyone should be boycotting that show as far as I'm concerned. And Holly should definitely step away from him. And, you know, the co-presenter, there's a few running favourites at the moment. And I just think that, you know, it's really bad for her brand. And he's had his day. And you know what he's going to do now, in my opinion, on a PR stunt? He'll probably try to make everyone feel sorry for him. Poor Phil, like when he was lying and cheating to his wife and everything, and being condescending to me for saying that people shouldn't lie and cheat. I think he went on the whole everyone pity me mode. And I think that's what's coming to
He's good at that. He's good at that. Well, look, fascinating stuff. Thank you to this morning's relationship expert, Louise van der Walt, who says she's boycotting the show while Philip is in place. Thank you, too, to Amy Ansell and the PR legend, Mark Bukowski. But who do you agree with on this? Is it time for ITV to intervene and remove either Holly or Phil? From Diane on Twitter, this is. She writes, I don't think either should be removed. Despite whatever has gone on, they can still work well together. Just depends if they want to. Well, look, from what I'm hearing, Holly definitely doesn't want to. Lemon writes, keep them both and let's all watch the ship slowly sink over the coming months. This way, things can't be swept under the carpet. And from Simon, they should both be removed live on air, preferably. Ratings would go up for that moment, I think. And your verdict is now in, oh, goodness gracious me, 91% of you say ITV needs to remove Philip Schofield. Just 9% say the person who should leave this morning is Holly Willoughby. Fascinating. Coming up, though, as a damning new report finds that now 1 in 10 children want to change their gender and a third are being taught that a woman can have a penis, are celebrities like Charlize Theron wrong to encourage this extreme ideology? Megyn Kelly takes on the Hollywood star who played her in the blockbuster movie Bombshell very shortly. But first, Downing Street may have rejected Nigel Farage's honest assessment that Brexit has failed, but Britain's Vote Leave hero has a prescription for saving our exit from the EU before it's too late. He joins me to reveal all straight after this.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What the Farage time now, and Downing Street has been forced to deny that Brexit was a failure today after our very own Nigel took aim at the government for making a mess of our EU exit. Here's how he responded when attacked with a flurry of anti-Brexit bias on Surprise Surprise BBC Newsnight.
53% of people say it was wrong to Brexit. Around 1 in 5 Leave voters regret it. Economically, the UK would have been better staying in, wouldn't it?
I don't think that for a moment. But what I do think...
Based on all that?
But what I do think is we haven't actually benefited from Brexit economically when we could have done. I mean, what Brexit's proved, I'm afraid, is that our politicians are about as useless as the commissioners in Brussels were. Brexit has failed. We've not delivered on borders. We've not delivered on Brexit. The Tories have let us down very, very badly.
Now, Rishi Sunak's number 10 operation was forced to respond this morning, insisting the government did not agree with Nigel's sentiments. A spokesman said, I think the Prime Minister has talked about the benefits of Brexit on a number of occasions. But Nigel, another Brexit backlash seems to be brewing. Among the Europhiles at the BBC, you blame the Tory government for the failures of Brexit. You made that very clear. Your comments have gone everywhere today. My real question to you is, can Brexit be saved, and if so, how?
Well, I mean, look, Dan, you know, there's no question the reason the turnout was 10% higher than all the experts thought was people voted. They thought, you know what? This time our vote counts. We can get back control of our borders and reduce the number of people coming into the United Kingdom. That is why we got Brexit. Be in no doubt about that. And the Conservative Party, on the back of it, you know, made all these pledges in 2019. But I know for a fact that Boris Johnson and the posh boy Brexiteers around him never really intended to do that. Boris himself talked in sort of woolly terms about control is what matters, not numbers. Well, I'm sorry, the numbers do matter. The one hope in this situation is the Conservative Party's instinct for survival. All right? Because if they go on down this current course, the next election is completely and utterly gone. They will lose every single one of those red wall seats. So the one hope is that they see the country is disgusted with their, frankly, total spin and dishonesty. And yeah, Sunak's awful, but it was Johnson on this issue. Boris has never cared about immigration. He actually wants, you know, amnesties for illegals and all the rest of it. If they can realise their only way to survive, their only way to avoid 10 years of opposition is to change course radically and quickly. And that must be the hope. And that's where, you know, media voices, conferences happening on the fringes of the party, opinion polls, that's the one hope. If they don't respond to that, then I'm afraid Brexit's dead. Because far from deregulating, we're actually imposing more burdens on some industry than the European Union. We have mass immigration. We have Northern Ireland permanently cut off from the rest of the United Kingdom. I don't believe Brexit itself is a failure. I believe the implementation has been a huge failure.
Yeah, no, I understand that. How do you feel today, Nigel, with your sworn enemies across the media and the Ramona elite, as I like to call them? How do you feel about them leaping on these comments from you and saying, I told you so?
To be honest, I couldn't care less. I'm not really interested in what, some saddo like James O'Brien thinks. I mean, I'm not going to let any of that worry me too much. Fine, let them do what they want. What I said was perfectly in context. And look, I was speaking on behalf of ordinary Brexit voters, people who aren't political, people who live their lives, do their jobs, pay their mortgages, bring up their families. They voted Brexit because they wanted a new start in British politics. They haven't got it. They certainly won't get it when Labour get into power next year. They've every right to feel that they were conned and let down by voting Brexit. The process of taking back control of our lives, of course, was the right thing to do. It's just that these idiots in the Conservative Party are just as useless as the bureaucrats in Brussels. And that's the sad truth of where we are. But they've survived for 200 years. They've done it by adapting. They've done it by being chameleons. They still, if they can muster the courage, have time.
Nigel, I want to talk to you about the British Bashing Corporation. They have had an agenda against Brexit for a long time. This happened last week on Newsnight, this extraordinary clash between Alex Phillips, an old colleague of both of ours, now a member of Reform UK, and that scumbag Alistair Campbell. Have a look at this.
Sovereignty, immigration, the list of it. You failed on every
I knew you were
thing.
going to come up with, the money for the NHS. Nothing to do with me, not my campaign. And it's very rich, a man who essentially was part of telling lies to invade a country, to accuse me of dishonesty.
I think you might have lost the argument there, my dear. If I may patronise you even more. Honestly.
No, that's it now.
Yes, I will.
I'm afraid. No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
it. No, that's it.
No,
That's
sorry.
it.
You bring these people on, you never challenge them. You let them talk utter rubbish about Brexit. And it's happened on the BBC for year after year after year.
I mean, he's been proven wrong, hasn't he? Because you were challenged very strongly last night.
Yeah, and after that, he put his arm right out across the table in front of Alex Phillips. It was the most menacing physical gesture. And, Victoria Derbyshire, who actually, let's be fair, is one of the BBC's better interviewers, because she's pretty tough on everybody. I actually think she's rather good. There are many that are not. She did stand her ground against Campbell, and she said to me personally, she'd never come across an interview like it in 25 years. He is a thug. He is a bully. It was intimidating. Do you know, if I behaved like that as a Brexiteer against, a Labour or Green MP Remainer, I mean, I would be painted out to be a bully, to be evil. And somehow, whilst there is a massive comment on social media, very, very few other media outlets have picked up on it. Campbell should never be allowed to go back on the BBC unless he apologises properly, fully, for his disgusting, thuggish, arrogant behaviour. And it's arrogance. It's arrogance. It was all the way through. You see, what we've also learned, Dan, in the course of the last week, Aaron Banks won his case against Carol Cadwalladr, wrote all the Russia conspiracy stuff. I was under investigation by the FBI. This was taken as a truism by the BBC's Today programme. We've also learned in the last 24 hours from John Durham, who for 4 years has investigated whether Russia interfered in the 2016 American presidential election, that it was all lies, that it's not true. This is what we're up against. We're up against a very, very powerful establishment with their media friends who do not like being beaten. And that is why I am so disgusted with this Conservative Party. They took my narrative, one that I'd spent 20 years curating, one that I'd taken abuse for. They took it, it led to an 80-seat majority, but we're learning they never actually believed in it. And that is my real source of anger today. They can save themselves, they can save the country, but is Sunak brave enough and bold enough to do it? We'll see.
Let's hope so. And yes, great coverage of the Russian hoax on your show tonight. Sadly, not really covered anywhere else in the mainstream media today. But you'll have more, no doubt, tomorrow. Nigel Farage back at 7 o'clock here on GB News. But coming up, Sunak flew into Iceland today to demand the President of the European Court of Human Rights reforms rules that stop British migrant deportations to Rwanda. But should the PM forget the niceties and simply withdraw from the ECHR now? My superstar panel debate that shortly. But next, a damning new report finds that now 1 in 10 children want to change their gender and a third are being taught that a woman can have a penis. So are celebrities like Charlize Theron wrong to encourage this extreme ideology? Well, Megyn Kelly takes on the Hollywood star who played her in that blockbuster movie Bombshell. Cannot wait to see this straight after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing. We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I have walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Megyn Kelly time now, and a shocking new report has found that 1 in 10 British children are wanting to change their gender, while a third are being taught that a woman can have a penis. But it's not just in schools where gender extremism is taking hold, as this week Megyn has been engaged in a high-profile row with star Hollywood actress Charlize Theron over whether drag queens should perform in front of kids. And the pair already have history, with Charlize playing Megyn in the 2019 blockbuster Bombshell about Fox News.
If we sweep this thing under the rug, Janine, and it happens again, under Title VII, Fox will be liable for compensatory and punitive damages. That could be hundreds of millions. Let's worry about the law before we do the PR, okay?
But in recent days, Charlize and Megyn could not appear more different. Here's a quick rundown of their war of words.
We love you, Queen.
We love you, Queen.
We're in your corner, and we've got you, and I will anybody up who's like trying to with anything with you guys.
So why doesn't Charlize Theron come and me up? Because I'm 100% against her on this.
So, Megyn, that was quite a challenge to Charlize. It's gone all around the world. You got on with her previously, right? When she...
No, we don't know each other.
You don't know each other at all? Okay.
Mm-mm.
And
No.
so now...
So look, I have no ill will toward her.
Yeah.
She, I had nothing to do with that movie. They basically stole my book and made it into a movie, which is fine. But it wasn't my thing. And she seems like a nice person. She's a fine actress. However, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And like most actors and actresses, she should just stay in her damn lane, because when they try to be pundits, things start to go south fast. She's trying to make some sort of an appeal, I guess, to her woke left-wing fans. She's probably woke and left-wing too. And by saying, you go queen, slay queen, yeah, drag queens, okay, without knowing what the actual controversy is about. These bills that she was trying to comment on and that they're raising money against here in the United States are not trying to say adults like Dan or Megyn could not go into a bar and watch a drag queen show if we wanted to. They are trying to say these performers are not appropriate for young children, and that they should not be showing up at school libraries or public libraries that are doing drag queen story hours for children when they're dressed in inappropriate bondage gear, because it sexualizes children at an inappropriate age. And that is what the controversy is over. The controversy is not over grown-ups going into consensual establishments and watching entertainment. That's what they try to make it sound like it's about. So what's really important to Charlize and the people doing her little raise money for drag queens telethon seems to be getting sexual content in front of children. Why the heck is that so important to them? They need to take a moment and ask themselves, what about this is important to me? Because the answer might be rather disturbing. This is fine. Okay, you can show this person sitting there. I think this is inappropriate, but that's not what it's about. We have video after video of men dressed as women going in front of children and gyrating with the thigh-high boots and the bondage gear and fake prosthetic breasts hanging out, wiggling them in front of toddlers who just look confused and referring to themselves down south in Rio with the P word over and over and over and over while they wiggle their bottoms and twerk. No, it's inappropriate, and it actually is grooming.
Yeah, no, I know. We've actually seen that sort of footage before. We have showed it on the show before, and it is incredibly disturbing. I think the other worry that we've got here, Megyn, is that Charlize was actually encouraging physical violence against people who disagree with this extreme gender ideology. We've seen a case in the UK in the past couple of weeks of a trans Starbucks employee actually physically attacking two customers who happened to misgender the woman standing behind the counter who claimed that she was non-binary. I had those two customers on my show last night. They said, we're not transphobic at all. We just looked at this person who was a woman and politely described her as a lady. And they actually, the trans person actually physically attacked them, and the police are now investigating. So that's what really concerns me about the rhetoric from Charlize. It's almost as if she's encouraging drag or trans violence.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. So Charlize Theron says, I will F you up if you mess with my drag queens. And that's why I said, okay, start with me, because we both know she's not going to do it. She's all talk. She's trying to sound tough. But who knows who she's inspiring? Because we play videos on my show day after day of yet another whacked out member of this community. Their activists are the worst, threatening to shoot anybody who stops them from using a restroom of their choice. Yep. So if I see one of these crazy looking guys, they do not pass as women, not even close. These people who go on TikTok and threaten us, trying to go into the bathroom stall next to my young child and say, sir, no, they're literally threatening to shoot me to death. And I'm supposed to just say, oh, okay, no problem. Go right ahead. Use my space. So there is a question of responsibility when it comes to messaging on this issue, which has gotten really charged. I mean, as you know, a month ago, In Nashville, Tennessee, there was a trans person who went in and shot up a school, including a bunch of children and their educators. So she does have an obligation to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more responsible. But I'll tell you the other thing, Dan, over and over, what we have seen is that people who want to sexualize children, actual pedophiles, what they do, one of the important steps in getting the child to go along is to start talking about sexual content in front of them or start showing sexual content to them at an inappropriate age. And so it lowers their defenses. The child suddenly goes from, this is wrong and I'm uncomfortable, to, oh no, I'm familiar with this and it's okay. So she should not be encouraging this. Not saying she's going to do it or the drag queen's going to do it, but they're lowering the defenses for it to happen in some child's life.
Of course, but there's also something deeply homophobic about this whole thing too, Megyn, because lots of young kids, and I speak from personal experience here, struggle with their sexuality and gender when they're growing up and get the whole thing confused. And it's really concerning that lots of young lesbian kids and teenagers and young gay kids and teenagers being told, oh no, you're not gay or lesbian, you must want to be a girl or want to be a boy. So we just have to let kids work this out themselves as they have been for years, and then make a responsible decision when they're 18 about how they want to live their life, instead of trying to trap them in the wrong gender young. And I know Charlize has done it with her own child, but I think that's very dangerous.
With her 3-year-old. You're exactly right. The studies show that over 90% of these children, if left alone, will get over any gender confusion and revert back to their biological sex. But they also show that when you pop them on puberty blockers at a young age, it arrests that development that would return them back to their biological sex. And so you're really setting them down a path that is irreversible. It's a new form of conversion therapy to try to get little gay boys to somehow now be straight girls.
Just let kids be kids. Absolutely. Megyn Kelly, host of the Megyn Kelly Show podcast. You've got to subscribe on YouTube as well, and we will speak next week. Megyn, thank you so much.
Great to see you.
But coming up, as Rishi Sunak faces growing unrest from Tory backbench MPs and his own cabinet over his plans to impose the biggest tax rise since the 1970s on millions, former Housing Secretary and Liz Truss ally Simon Clarke joins me live to make a plea to the PM to slash levies and fast. But first, as senior Tory MPs accuse Suella Braverman of making a bid for the party leadership, would the Home Secretary be a better PM than Sunak? We're going to be debating that with the superstar panel very, very shortly. Plus, a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press. Don't go anywhere. We're back in just 2 minutes' time.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, nah, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, Rishi Sunak arrived in Iceland to meet the president of the ECHR, where he demanded the Rwanda plan is given the green light. But should the PM take more affirmative action and free the UK from the shackles of Europe's lefty lawyers altogether? Plus, does Suella Braverman have a better plan for stopping the boats and perhaps for leading the country? I'll ask my superstar panel if the ambitious Home Secretary could be PM next. Tonight, I'm joined by Amanda Patel, Armin Bogle and Rebecca Reid. Then, with the Tories in uproar over Sunak imposing the biggest tax rise since the 1970s, which will drag many teachers, nurses and electricians into the 40p rate of income tax, are the true blues of the party close to breaking point? Former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, the ex-Transport Secretary and Liz Truss ally Simon Clarke says that Conservative spirit is under attack. He joins me live in the studio shortly. In a matter of hours, Meghan Markle will receive her latest sham award alongside the co-founder of Black Votes Matter. So are the Sussexes plotting a new offensive against the monarchy? As predicted by Tom Bower last week, the esteemed royal biographer speaks out on the royal renegades. Plus, some big news on Kate and Camilla too, coming up and uncancelled. Also on the way, amid plummeting viewing figures, the senior execs at ITV have gathered for crisis talks on how to deal with the big fallout between Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield. So can the warring presenters keep the show on the road, or is the pair's breakup a matter of when, not if? We'll discuss the latest details on that developing story in the media buzz. And the woke brigade have taken the kids' action series Transformers a bit too literally.
My pronouns are they, them.
Thanks. I'm Sam. I'm she, they.
Stick around to see the rise of the non-binary robot. Still also be a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass name before the night is out, so do stay up with us tonight. Our first front pages, by the way, arrive in a mere moment's time, straight after Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. The top story on GB News tonight. The Prime Minister has been addressing the Council of Europe, saying the world's most vulnerable people are paying the price for unlawful migration. He's been telling world leaders that the international system for policing human trafficking just isn't working. That's as the government tries to implement the illegal migration bill at home, which is currently going through the House of Lords. The new law aims to tackle small boat crossings, sending asylum seekers back home or to a third country, such as Rwanda.
Illegal migration exploits the most vulnerable. It risks crowding out those with a genuine case for asylum. And it strains the trust that our citizens have, not just in our domestic borders, but in the international system. And that's why so many of us are already acting at the national level, and why we need to do more to cooperate across borders and across jurisdictions to end illegal migration and stop the boats.
Well, at the same meeting, the Council of Europe in Iceland, Downing Street has announced that the EU and the UK have agreed to strengthen their cooperation on international migration and the threat posed by Russia in Ukraine. Rishi Sunak and the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte have agreed to work together to build an international coalition to provide Ukraine with combat air capabilities, including supporting training to procuring F-16 jets. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky joined the council via video link and stressed the urgency for stronger air power.
There is still much to be done. Ukraine's territory is big, and to make air defense results like last night's the rule throughout the country, we need additional air defense systems and missiles. We also need modern fighter jets, without which no air defense system will be perfect. And I'm sure we will get there.
Well, that comes as South Africa's president says Russia and Ukraine have both agreed to meet African leaders to discuss a peace plan to end the war in Ukraine. The African leaders' peace mission is being backed by African leaders of Senegal, Uganda, Egypt, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia. President Zelensky has previously said all Russian troops must leave his country for any peace deal to take place. Now, 3 men who supplied fake passports to criminals have been jailed today. Anthony Beard, Christopher Zitek and Alan Thompson helped murderers and drug dealers evade justice. Beard, who paid vulnerable people for their expired documents, was sentenced to 6 years and 8 months in jail. His accomplices will serve a combined term of 11 years. And lastly, 2 poultry workers in England have tested positive for bird flu, although there are no signs of human-to-human transmission. Both cases are believed to have been linked to the same farm. The UK Health Security Agency is running a programme now of testing workers who've come into contact with infected birds, and they've launched an investigation. Test results show one of the workers infected is likely to have been contaminated after inhaling the virus. It's unclear if the second person was contaminated after inhalation or whether they were infected some other way. You're up to date on TV, online, DAB+ radio and the TuneIn app. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages are in. The Metro up first. It leads with the staggering revelation that 2.5 million Brits are too sick to work because of long-term illness. OK, long COVID, they say. Yeah, right. Lazy, I say. The Guardian leads with an exclusive on government plans to exempt private landlords who rent to asylum seekers from standard housing regulations in a bid to cut the astronomical asylum hotels bill that currently stands at £6 million a day. My superstar panel back now. Top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, the Conservative commentator Armand Bogle, and the author and broadcaster Rebecca Reid. Now, Rishi Sunak jetted into Iceland today, demanding the President of the European Court of Human Rights reforms rules that stop British migrant deportations to Rwanda. In his latest attempt to crack the Channel crisis, the PM called on ECHR Chief Shefra O'Leary to overhaul 11th-hour injunctions that ground deportation planes. But as David Cameron found in 2016, attempting to negotiate with European fanatics on the continent is like trying to get a genuine word out of Keir Starmer. Impossible. That's why Sunak should stop wasting his time and listen to Tory cohorts who urge him to do whatever it takes to stop the boats immediately, either by ignoring the ECHR or just withdrawing completely. Former Home Secretary Priti Patel was the latest Tory voice to call for exactly that during my exclusive interview with her at the Conservative Democratic Organisation conference. This is the first look at what she told me.
An ECHR is not something that you can just sit and think about. You know, if it is the thing that's going to be the game changer, then just do it, quite frankly.
If Sunak can't stop the boats, allies of our current Home Secretary Suella Braverman are first to insist she'll make a better PM. In fact, Conservative MPs have accused her of undermining Rishi's authority with barnstorming speeches on railing against the elites and radical leftists, much to the delight of the Tory faithful. So, look, Amanda, we've heard lots of tough talk from Sunak, but how's he actually going to get the ECHR to listen to him? And should we not just start listening to Suella, who says just get out? And even Priti Patel now hinting just get out.
This whole thing is ludicrous. Going over to Iceland, he might as well have gone to his local Iceland and gone and spoken to the frozen prawns
some onion
there.
rings.
Because, you know, it is totally ludicrous. We voted for Brexit. We were given a guarantee that we'd have control of our borders, you know, take in the whole narrative. And he's going over there, cap in hand, trying to say, oh, please, please, let us have this deal we want. That is not what we voted for. And they've already betrayed us with that, the so-called bonfire of the EU regulations, when they're a minute number, about as many, you know, soggy sausages you could cook on a Sunday on a barbecue. You know, there's no bonfire. He's betrayed us at every single level. And I'm embarrassed to see our Prime Minister going cap in hand to a bunch of to a European organisation. It is embarrassing. He's betrayed us.
Very strong words from Amanda. Aman, as a Conservative,
I'm a Conservative too.
I know you are. But you say we should just leave the ECHR.
Yeah, I think we should. But I can also understand, I think, why the Prime Minister is trying to be pragmatic and trying to give, I think, one last chance to these EU supranationalist bullies.
Do we have time, then?
I don't think we have time. I think we are past that point now. Yeah. But having said that, this is the first meeting of the Council for Europe for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think the Prime Minister is right to try and make that case. I think tonight the UK has managed to do a deal with Frontex, the French-European border force. But then again, they're not being able to control their own borders. I think throwing more money at the French to do their own law and order, dirty work, is not the answer. We've already given them tens of millions of pounds repeatedly.
Yeah, the French don't want this to work. Rebecca Reid, you're very wedded to the idea of staying in the ECHR, aren't you?
Yeah, because I like things like human rights and fire and maternity rights.
But we don't need the EU to tell us how to run things.
But we do, because I don't trust the current administration. If we got rid of all of the things that put in place...
So you trust a foreign administration?
Can I finish my sentence, please?
No, this is ridiculous.
I feel fairly strongly that all of the protections that we have, like maternity regulations, are really important.
But they were brought in before we joined the EU.
We joined the ECHR. The ECHR was from the 1950s.
No, I'm talking about the EU. We don't need the EU to provide our own rights.
But if we get rid of the current situation...
We gave you the world the Magna Carta.
I don't trust the people... Yeah, the people currently in charge do not give the world the Magna Carta.
But you can't even vote for the people that you think you trust in the EU.
Who are they, Rebecca?
No, I'm saying
the
current situation... I think works fairly well in the sense that we have security and safety in people's workplaces, for instance. And if we got rid of that, I don't trust how it would be replaced. The idea that in order to be able to send, like...
That you think this great country, as Armin says, the country that gave the world the Magna Carta cannot put our own fire regulations in place. Come on, Rebecca.
They will find a way that it's more cost-effective and you can work people harder if you cut corners. They will be like, oh, we're going to let people make their own decisions, and then people will die in fires.
Rebecca, surely this country, we have a great tradition of human rights. And I think we should be proud of it rather than bending down.
The 50s. This was done by Winston Churchill. Yep. This is a good, sensible system.
But the ECHR was set up in a very different era, soon after the World War II.
It's so weird
not
that
fit for purpose
today.
Today.
Like, bum Winston Churchill want to get rid of the one useful thing that he left us. It's
Rebecca, don't be so rude. Don't be so uncouth talking about Winston Churchill in that way. And actually, do you know what?
What have you got against Rwanda?
I would not like to send them to Mauritius. I would not like to send them to New York. I would not like to send anybody to anywhere that is not an issue with Rwanda. Rwanda's a beautiful country.
There's no way in the current circumstances that Winston Churchill would want to remain a member of the ECHR.
Absolutely.
How could you possibly know that?
Because there's no way Winston Churchill would allow an illegal invasion of our southern border.
Ask her to. This is a ridiculous...
You think Winston Churchill would just allow people by the tens of thousands to stream into our country? Of course he wouldn't.
He would be turning them back. He would...
Well, you're the one that invoked Churchill here, Rebecca, so I'm just following your pattern,
the kind of people who are obsessed with him want to leave this. It was the one useful thing to do.
You don't trust the government that's elected by the people.
I don't trust the current... Well,
and unfortunately, Rishi Sunak was not elected by the people.
Rishi Sunak wasn't.
Look, let's move on to something joyful. Think of American 80-year-olds, and you'll probably conjure up the thought of Joe Biden sort of walking around the stage, not knowing where the exit is, or falling down some airplane stairs. But far from being a geriatric OAP, actor Harrison Ford has not only passed the test of time, but proven himself as one of the fittest and most versatile actors, despite a gruelling 60-year Hollywood career. Because I'm about to show you the 80-year-old, I still can't believe it, in action from the latest sneak peek of the new Indiana Jones movie, alongside that woman from Fleabag.
His only daughter selling her soul for bail money.
Sounds quite cool when you put it like that. And it's not all bail money. Some of it's gambling debts and some... Teddy?
Helena! No! Helena! How did you end up like this?
I mean, resourceful, daring, beautiful, self-sufficient!
Remarkably, Ford still performs most film stunts himself, and from that latest clip doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. So take note, Biden. Rebecca Reed, Amal Bogan, Amanda Patel, do stand by, because coming up, amid plummeting viewing figures, the senior executives at ITV have gathered for crisis talks on how to deal with this huge fallout between Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield. So can the warring presenters keep the show on the road, or is the pair's breakup a matter of when, not if? We're going to debate that in the media buzz soon. But first, as Rishi Sunak faces growing unrest over the biggest tax rise since the 1970s on millions, former Housing Secretary and Liz Truss ally Simon Clarke makes a plea to the PM to slash levies and fast. He's live in the studio in just a moment.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tom Bowell with major news on Harry, Meghan, Kate and Camilla shortly. But first, Rishi Sunak is facing growing unrest from Tory backbench MPs and his cabinet over imposing the biggest tax rise since the 1970s. According to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the PM's current plan will drag many middle earners, including teachers, nurses and electricians, into the 40p rate of income tax. And top Tories, still sore from the party's poor show at the local elections, are now calling on Sunak to bring tax cuts forward to avoid a hammering at the general election. But it seems that the PM and his Chancellor High Tax Jeremy Hunt are hell-bent on stopping the UK becoming a low-tax nation, an aim that saw Rishi's predecessor Liz Truss destroyed by the globalist MSM and civil service blob. And Tory MP Simon Clarke, former Chief Secretary to the Treasury and close ally of Truss, says the PM needs to ditch the current high-tax socialist consensus and rediscover what the party truly stands for. I'm delighted to say Simon Clarke joins me live in the studio now.
Good evening.
So you say, Simon, the Tories have lost Thatcherite principles when it comes to taxation.
I think that's right, and I think we've got obviously a very challenging economic landscape at the moment. We all know the effects of first the pandemic and now the inflation caused by war in Europe, and I respect the fact that that creates a difficult situation for the government, as it would for, frankly, any government. But there are choices in front of us in terms of both spending and tax, which I think we are getting wrong. And I think it's very important that over the course of the year leading up to the election and in our manifesto, that we set out a plan to break free of what feels like an ever-increasing ratchet of more spending.
Because when Thatcher was in power, it was a tiny percentage of folk who were in this top
3.5%
bracket. So it's gone from 3.5% to 1 in 5. And I mean, that's not going to get the people out to vote Tory at the next election, is it?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think it's obviously bad for the economy, it's bad for family finances, but it's really bad for the Conservative Party because it's starving us of our unique selling point to the public, which is ultimately we are the party who will leave you with more money in your pocket.
Do you in some ways sympathise with Sunak, though? Because he's seen what happened to your ally. You know, you were in her cabinet, Liz Truss. I supported her throughout the leadership campaign last year. I think she could have been a brilliant Prime Minister. And actually, Kwasi Kwarteng could have been a brilliant Chancellor too. Sure, they went too fast. Sure, they didn't communicate in the right way. But don't you agree that their job was made almost impossible by the forces working against them, who were almost insistent that the UK has to stay with the status quo when it comes to taxation?
Well, I think there were lots of factors which led to what happened last autumn, some of which clearly amounted to mistakes, but some of which did amount, I think, to a systemic aversion to the break with the economic model that Liz was trying to deliver. And there is no point crying over spilt milk. What happened, happened. But do I think that the fundamental arguments that Liz was advancing remain valid? Yes, I do. I think that the burden of tax and regulation in our economy is too high. I think that we've got a state which doesn't know its limits. And I think that UK competitiveness, which is obviously the cornerstone of our ability to be a major player globally, is declining. And we need to take steps to address that. None of it's impossible. It's within our power to do it. And fundamentally, I think that over the course of the next year, we do need to be braver.
Your former party treasurer, Lord Cruddas, used to be a major donor, told me at the Conservative Democratic Organisation conference at the weekend that he fears the Conservatives are now a centre-left party. Do you share any of his concerns?
I think centre-left is strong. I mean, I do think that we should have the courage of our convictions. And whilst I absolutely respect the fact that the government is trying to deliver sound money and to make sure that we can pay our way, I think that the balance has tipped over into an economic programme which is way to the left of that which I think a Conservative government ought optimally to be seeking to set out.
Speaking of the CDO, it was fascinating speaking to the grassroots Tories there who have not given up hope of Boris Johnson returning to the Prime Ministership. Is there any world in which you can see that happening, Simon Clarke?
I mean, the most important thing to say is obviously that, the Prime Minister is in place and, we all as Conservative MPs have a responsibility, I think, to try to get behind the government and to make sure that we succeed in 2024. I mean, we obviously will have different views as to how we can best do that, but fundamentally, we do owe loyalty to the Prime Minister. My thoughts on what happened last year are very clear. I supported Boris Johnson to the bitter end, and I wanted him to come back when Liz fell. So you can, I think, take it as read that I remain a huge admirer of the former Prime Minister. I think that his electoral reach, his generosity of vision the fact that he genuinely did get those big decisions right. I mean, that was the government line last summer, but it was true on overcoming COVID, on facing down Putin and arming the Ukrainians, critically, obviously, on making sure that we actually delivered the Brexit that people voted for. Boris Johnson was far more in tune than any other contemporary politician with what people wanted.
So if the Tories look like they are facing a thumping at the next general election, could it be possible that Boris is drafted in?
Well, I can't be drawn on that question. I mean, look, the reality is that, as I say, we have a duty to try and make sure that we succeed as a government. And Rishi Sunak is a very, very capable Prime Minister. There are lots of things that I wish we were doing somewhat differently. There are lots of things, obviously, that I do welcome. I do think, for example, the illegal migration bill is a really positive step forward.
Although legal migration
is just too high.
At 1 million.
Yeah, well, if it comes through at 1 million or even close to that, that is a sure sign that what the Home Secretary has been saying needs to be respected. I mean, I'm only going off what I'm reading in the newspapers now, but if there is serious resistance in Cabinet to plans to bring immigration down from the kind of levels that we're talking about, then I think that's crazy, because at every election over the last 14 years, the British public have made it clear that they want lower immigration to this country, and we have to take steps to actually make that happen. We have to stop, fundamentally, the substitution of cheap foreign labour to displace wage rises in the UK, which is what so many people voted for in 2016.
Could agree more. Funny, I just wanted to ask you about this bizarre row that has developed between the bitter lefty Carol Vorderman, Lisa Nandy on the Labour front bench, and the Tory Teesside Mayor Ben Houchen, who to me seems to be a very high-performing guy, and it's all over his commitment to level up the country. But he's been accused of cronyism.
Well, there's been a lot of nonsense talked about what's happening at Teesworks. Teesworks is the big regeneration project at Redcar, just north of my constituency. And what you're seeing at Teesworks is a sustained smear attempt by the Labour MP for Middlesbrough, Andy MacDonald, and other local Labour figures to try and basically throw as much mud as possible at Ben Houchen and this crucial regeneration project, in the hope that it sticks, that it drags the project down, and that by doing so, obviously, it contaminates the Tory brand. It is genuinely one of the most cynical and shameful attempts I've seen in politics for years. And the harm it will do to Teesside jobs if it's allowed to succeed is enormous. So we're using every opportunity we've got to set out the truth, that there is no corruption, that no laws have been broken. And Ben this evening has said that if the National Audit Office want to conduct a full investigation, he's happy with that, because ultimately, in the end, there's nothing to hide.
Big fan of Ben Houchen.
Indeed,
actually,
as am I.
He's the sort of Tory, actually, you're going to need out in force at the next election.
Quite.
Simon Clarke, former Cabinet Minister, really great to have you here
Dan.
tonight. Thank you so much. But coming up in Uncancelled in a matter of hours, Meghan Markle will receive her latest sham award alongside the co-founder of Black Votes Matters. So are the Sussexes plotting a new offensive against the monarchy, as predicted by Tom Bower last week? The esteemed royal biographer speaks out on the royal renegades. Plus, he's got news on Kate and Camilla having a bit of a bust-up as well. That's coming up shortly. But next, amid plummeting viewing figures, the senior execs at ITV have gathered for crisis talks on how to deal with the big fallout between Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield. So can the warring presenters keep the show on the road, or is the pair's breakup a matter of when, not if? That's the Media Buzz very shortly. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Don't go anywhere.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now, and our media buzz and more front pages are in. Straight to the Daily Express that leads on the PM's demand to European judges that Britain is allowed to deport illegal migrants and stop meddling in the government's Rwanda flight plans. The Daily Mail leads with what it calls the UK sick note crisis, blaming it on working from home. That's the figures released by the ONS, showing that 2.5 million are out of work suffering from long-term illness. My superstar panel back in the studio. Top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator Armin Bogle, and the author and broadcaster Rebecca Reid. Now, and another devastating blow for woke ITV this morning has lost 170,000 viewers in just a week as Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield failed to address their fallout for a second day on air. The plummeting ratings come as senior figures at the channel called a crisis meeting following a wave of negative feedback online about yesterday's show. But writing for the Daily Mail, my superstar panellist Amanda Patel says she knew the gig was up for Holly and Phil on Thursday after watching just one excruciating interaction. It was this.
Good morning and welcome to your Thursday this morning. Does that sound good this morning? I think that probably sounds quite good all of the time. Lulu with Boom Banga Bang, and that is from 1969 and was the joint winner with 3 other
I didn't know that.
How was that a thing?
I don't know how that was the whole of Europe, an exact voting made 3 people. Spain, the Netherlands and France.
Oh, well, there you go. There's a little Eurovision fact I didn't know.
And breaking tonight, we've just got the Sun front page in that says Philip Schofield faces the axe from this morning amid a seismic summer shake-up. The newspaper's reporting that insiders believe the time is finally up for Phil. And Amanda Patel, as you said there, you think it's an inevitability?
I thought it was a really good stunt to try and get them to dance together, but then when you saw it, you just saw the toxicity. And I have some experience with really unfortunate TV shows.
I know, we get on great behind the scenes.
You say. Piers Morgan and I did a show together called Morgan and Patel.
I remember
Of course,
it.
it was called Morgan and
It was on
Patel.
Channel 4.
It was on Channel 4. And we started off as friends, and like Holly and Philly, and then we ended up as shouting at each other. It was just completely horrible. And
There you are.
Oh, look. When was this?
That's a really good... Doesn't he look big in that picture?
This was about, what, 2006,
I have no
2005?
idea.
Yeah, around there.
Started off as friends, ended up hating each other, and now we're really good friends, despite the fact that we totally eclipse his ratings all the time on the rival station.
Maybe you're not friends now.
But I understand when it goes sour, it is just sour. There's no recovering from that.
Rebecca, you actually feel sorry for Holly Willoughby here.
I really do. So I've done This Morning a lot of times, and I think you can sort of sense the difference in the chemistry between
What's he like with you?
On his phone, usually, until
That's rude.
No, to be fair, like, Piers is the same with... Maybe I'm just boring, but broadly speaking...
You're not boring.
Somebody's on their phone until they're presenting. But I think Holly Willoughby is a nice woman, and I think it's really unfortunate that her career is very tied to his, and I think she stood by him through a lot, and she's been a very supportive co-host, but I would like to see her given somebody else who she can bounce off maybe a bit differently and a bit more. Also, Alison Hammond and Dermot... O'Leary. That's proper sunshine telly. That's joy. Like, that's the most fun thing to watch.
I love him.
They are the best combination.
I want to be his stepmother.
That's a very specific fantasy.
Armand Bogle, where do you stand on this? I mean, look, aren't viewers just voting with their remote? 175,000 people switching off within a week. That's disastrous.
Absolutely. Look, I'm a big believer in the free market, and I think people will vote with their remotes. And ultimately, unlike the BBC, the ITV is a PLC. It is a profit-generating company. And if it's not performing for its shareholders, then... well, it needs to reorientate itself.
Amanda, what's fascinating to me on this, though, is the lack of high-profile support Philip Schofield has had. And I think he is the perfect example, and I know this from personal experience, of that old showbiz cliche: if you're a horrible wench to people on the way up, then your journey on the way down is not going to be pretty, because no one wants to stand up for the bloke, because we've seen how he treated Eamon, you know, lovely Eamon, we've seen how he treated Ruth, we've seen how he treated Amanda Holden, we've seen how he treated Fern Britton, so people feel like this is his comeuppance.
I think that's one of those great lessons in life. One of the things my father taught me is, you know, you just be really good to everybody.
And also, do you ever notice that... Sorry.
No, go on.
But, like, Piers, everybody in the ITV studios has only good things to say about him. Like, from the security to the makeup artist, everybody loved him.
But Piers?
Yeah, Piers.
I didn't love him.
Well, no, not on your show.
He was a complete nightmare.
But he is very...
He turned me into a screaming
he has been blocked on Twitter.
And I am not that person.
But he blocked you on Twitter?
I am not that person.
He is honestly a very nice... Like, he in Northcliffe House, where he works as a journalist, he always holds the door for everybody in the lift.
OK,
he
can
has
I tell you what it was
manners.
really like working with Piers Morgan?
Yeah.
He used to get in straight away. The first thing he did was this was first after his first diaries came out. He got on, and we used to have the nickname for what he used to do in the office was that all he did was Google himself, right? And talk about it. We used to say that he was pleasuring himself on his mobile.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm sorry,
Oh, my
you
goodness.
know,
But
I'm
by the way,
sorry.
I don't
that's
know.
what
I don't
he
know
did.
who you're talking about. Who is this man?
You're getting all the gossip
Can we
this
please
evening.
move on? Can
One
we
of the biggest
please
TV
move on?
stars. Just don't get jealous, OK?
Now, look, parents have been left screaming at their TV screens after gender extremists' latest attempt to brainwash young kids. So, Transformers Earth Spark TV. This is a very popular kids programme available in the UK on Amazon Prime. And it's introduced a new non-binary robot, which says being neither male nor female is a wonderful experience. Internet users were quick to joke that its creators are really putting the trans in Transformers. Look.
My pronouns are they, them.
Thanks. I'm Sam. I'm she, they, but you already know that. Hey, it's okay. I know I'm safe when I'm with my friends or other non-binary people.
Non-binary?
People who aren't female or male. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed.
I always knew my pronouns felt right, but what a wonderful word. for a wonderful experience.
Rebecca, that's just indoctrination, isn't it?
I think it's important to show your children a wide variety of cultural touchstones.
Mum,
She said that with a
do
straight
you approve
face.
of that?
Not particularly. I have 2 children, and I think as they grow up, they can make their own decisions about, worldviews. But that's when they're able to.
I mean, Amanda, this is Hollywood now, isn't it? It's inserted into everything. Doesn't matter what it is. You can have a documentary about Tinkerbell, and there's going to be someone non-binary on there. It's just
Tinkerbell's
ludicrous.
totally non-binary.
It's becoming so wearisome.
Yeah.
So wearisome. And I don't know when I'm writing about them, I don't know whether to call them he, she, they, theirs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so...
Oh, yeah.
You message me and I'll let you know.
And if you get it wrong,
Rebecca,
you'll be cancelled.
I'm more worried.
I'm
more worried that
Dan, I know what my pronoun is.
So many
Patriot.
times.
What are your pronouns?
Patriot.
Patriot, like that. Yes, Amand.
It's not a pronoun.
I knew you'd say
Amanda
pronoun.
If a man wants to be known as a patriot,
self-identify as I wish.
You cannot say that. That's not acceptable.
OK, well, look, I love it. Good on you, Amand. Now, coming up, amid those plummeting viewing figures, can the warring Philip and Ollie keep the show on the road? We'll discuss as we reveal tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass soon. But next and uncancelled, as Meghan Markle prepares to receive her latest sham award in the States, are the Sussexes plotting a new offensive against the monarchy, as predicted by Tom Bauer last week. The esteemed royal biographer is going to speak out on the royal renegades, plus rumoured tensions, wait for this, between Queen Camilla and the Princess of Wales, Kate. It's another Bauer bombshell in just 2 minutes' time.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, the Meghan Markle relaunch is fully underway, with the Duchess of Sussex throwing herself into a string of public appearances after she went to ground during the promotion of Prince Harry's wicked memoir, Spare. So yesterday, Meghan 2.0, as it's been branded, appeared alongside Harry at a Santa Barbara youth group to discuss mental health in a royal-style engagement that could become the norm if she pursues her rumoured political ambitions stateside. And remaining firmly in the limelight at the weekend, the couple were papped leaving a sushi restaurant after reportedly dining with Hollywood royalty, including Gwyneth Paltrow and Cameron Diaz. And in the next hour, Megyn is due to accept yet another high-profile sham award, as she is called the Women of Vision, for her work empowering and advocating on behalf of women and girls, alongside the Black Voters Matter co-founder Latosha Brown. This is fascinating, by the way, given she's admitted she only works 1 hour a week for charity. Meanwhile, hapless husband Harry has launched a renewed attempt to pay for police protection in the UK after winning his bid last year to challenge the Home Office's original 2020 decision, which he claims is unlawful. However, government and police lawyers told the Duke of Sussex today that officers cannot be bought as private bodyguards for the wealthy. So, Tom Bauer, you predicted this, didn't you? You said there was going to be another PR onslaught from Megyn immediately after the coronation, so you've got that one completely right. But can you believe Harry's fighting yet another legal battle with the government?
Six in all. And in the end, I think he's going to find himself feeling very miserable because he can't beat the government on whether he can buy the police or not. And the whole media argument, which is raging at the moment against the Daily Mirror, and particularly against Piers Morgan, seems to be a bit thin. I mean, it really is quite extraordinary. Today, the court didn't sit in the afternoon because Harry's chief witness, a journalist, suddenly forgot to come in to be cross-examined. This is a man who was accused of being a drunk and a drug addict and found the questioning a bit abusive and clearly had a headache. But altogether, you know, his assault on the media can't end well, because he is using a lawyer, Sherborne, who's a bit of a smear merchant, not very popular in the courts, against a pucker cross-examiner, Green. And the judge will have already made up his mind what the outcome is going to be, regardless of what happens in the court. And I think Harry's going to find it very, very difficult to actually win this case.
But yesterday we had this extraordinary moment where that odd little bloke who's pretty much a propagandist for Harry and Megyn, he's called Omid Scobie. Looks very odd, this bloke. But he goes in and he says, I was on a week's work experience at the Sunday People, you know, the work experience kid. But they told me everything about phone hacking, which I think is very hard to believe. It really tests his credibility. But what my biggest issue was, is he said under oath in court, I have never socialised with Prince Harry. Problem is, in his book, that hagiography, Finding Freedom, in the prologue, he admits to going to a small drinks gathering with Harry. So where was he lying, Tom? Was he lying in court or was he lying in his book?
Well, he was lying altogether. But what's hilarious is that here's the man who gave an inaccurate statement that when he wrote the book, he didn't know and was unaware of any help from Meghan and Harry, when, of course, he got that help over a 2.5-hour briefing, and he knew that it came from Harry. And more importantly, he says how he and Meghan hugged on her last day in Buckingham Palace. So, you know, of course he's lying. He is, but the judge knows that. That's the whole point. Scobie's evidence. And what's important is that he didn't name the person who told him how to hack.
Indeed, I wonder why.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. Look, Meghan's getting an award even though she spends a grand total of 1 hour a week working for her charity.
Yeah, but don't worry, Dan. This is going to go on. She will be able to find someone always who will give her an award because that gives...
sham award.
Well, because it gives the organisations the publicity they want. Somehow this unknown group is now going to get global attention. That's what it's all about. You pay. It's a win-win situation for them. And Meghan will clearly believe that she's once more heading again towards heaven.
It's time for a Bauer bombshell. Tom, you're hearing of some post-coronation tensions between Queen Camilla and the Princess of Wales, Kate?
Absolutely. What was very interesting was I heard from people who were very, very much involved 20-odd years ago, more than 20 years ago, in resurrecting Camilla. Their job was to take her from the mistress in 1996 and get her to be queen. And they were absolutely furious that they weren't invited to the coronation. There are dozens of people who helped Camilla become what she is today, the Queen, and not just the mistress who was being pelted with brown rolls. If you look at the coronation footage as the King and Queen leave the thrones and head for the exit of Westminster Abbey on the coronation Saturday, you'll see that everyone bows and curtsies to the King, and no one moves a limb, a muscle, when Camilla passes. And that was because they were angry with Camilla. Camilla brought 20 Parker Bowleses to the coronation. There were 4 Middletons. All the people that helped Camilla get the crown on her head were excluded from that coronation, and they were furious. And not only that, Kate and William were angry too. And that anger, of course, Harry was angry, that anger went right through that small part of the congregation by the throne, by the centre of Westminster Abbey. And in that moment, it was absolutely noticeable to those people who'd been excluded from the coronation that nobody, let alone Kate, curtsied to Queen Camilla.
Wow, and Kate didn't even allow her sister and brother to bring their partners to
And what was then noticeable was that at the Windsor concert the following day, William makes no reference to Queen Camilla. And so there is a tension there. And the whole point and problem with Camilla is that she is exhausted at the moment. She's a woman of 76. She's smoked heavily all her life, and she's not well. Those who met her in the weeks before the coronation noticed a very tired, very worn-out woman with telltale signs of age. And she's clearly exhausted by the whole thing. And that's why today, Kate was in Bristol, behaving like the Queen, very popular for the public. But Camilla has disappeared. And I think this is very, very sad and a dangerous position for Charles to be in. He's got all the problems of Harry now boiling up, because there's no doubt Harry is going to, in his evidence, name Charles as one of the culprits of all his campaigns against him. He's got the problem with the police, and of course he's got the problem now with Andrew.
Well, yeah, so can we talk about this for a moment? Because it's extraordinary. Prince Andrew essentially squatting now at his mansion. It's the Royal Lodge, isn't it? But it's a mansion on the Windsor estate, even though the plan for a long time, I actually first revealed this before the late Queen's death, the plan is to get William into Royal Lodge. But first I've got to get Andrew out into Frogmore Cottage, and he's just refusing to go.
Well, he's got legal grounds to refuse to go, of course, because he signed a 7-year lease. And, of course, he paid a lot of money. But the problem is he can't afford the maintenance of that building, which must be well in excess of £1 million a year. Well in excess. It's a vast place. So he is now literally in a cleft stick. What should he do? And without Charles's help, he is really stuck there. And Charles really has to force him out. There's no choice, because Andrew must accept that he is now going to go into a permanent obscurity. He looked a fool at the coronation with his garter garments. That was his last hurrah. But I just feel that Charles is exhausted by it all and will become even more exhausted with the condition of Camilla, with the tension between Camilla and William and Kate, and with all the other problems which are accumulating of too much estate, financial problems, a growing Republican movement. You know, he himself is 74. He's a bit exhausted by it all.
And Harry and Meghan's attacks are not going to stop,
and they're
they?
going to go on. And so he'll want to box in Andrew and silence him. But the problem is that Andrew, instead of being noble and being discreet and understanding that he's the author of his own misfortune, is just going to make it very much harder for the royal family. And that's all some of these things didn't happen under the Queen, and that's the problem. With Charles, he generates problems, and that is a great misfortune.
Wow. What a Bauer bombshell tonight. Absolutely loved it. Tom Bauer will speak next week. Thank you so much. But it's time now to reveal tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass. My superstar panel return. Amanda Patel, who's your nominee for Greatest Britain?
Mine are those fantastic people who took on the eco-warriors who claim they're reclaiming our streets and basically push them off the street. I just wish they'd all go and get a damn job like the rest of us.
This was so good, Amanda. I've got to play a little bit of it.
You understand? I understand.
I understand. Thank you.
Oh, it was just great seeing the public fighting back. Absolutely loved it. Aman, your nominee for Greatest Britain?
I think it's got to be the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. Very simple. I think she's absolutely right. It's not xenophobic to want to control our borders, to
And this
control
was some of her
immigration.
speech at the NatCon conference. Let's have a listen.
Yeah.
White people do not exist in a special state of sin or collective guilt. Nobody should be blamed for things that happened before they were born.
And Rebecca Reid, your greatest Britain.
Mine's honorary. It's Martha Stewart, who is on the front cover of Sports Illustrated looking amazing. She's 81 and she's rocking a bikini on the front of a magazine, and I love that for her.
Yeah, I have to say she's come a long way from that stint in jail, hasn't she? Well done, Martha Stewart. There she
Look, an icon.
Good work. But look, I've got to go with Amanda Patel and those anti-eco mob warriors. I watched that full video earlier, Amanda, and it made me
It's
so happy
great.
because I
It
thought
is so
actually...
great. I wanted to be there.
Yeah, totally. Brits are full of common sense and they're not going to put up with this rubbish any longer. Amanda, who's your Union Jackass nominee tonight?
Well, I'm very excited to say that it's Philip Schofield. I think he should stop harassing Holly and just exit before he's pushed, because he's going to get pushed.
I think you're right. Just go gracefully. Go gracefully, because Holly doesn't want you there, and at the end of the day, TV's brutal. She's the biggest star now.
And I'm afraid that he's now sold goods.
Yeah.
Not saying anything more.
Yeah.
OK?
OK.
I know the lawyers are watching.
I hear you. Aman Bogle, your nominee?
It's an honorary Union Jackass. I think the Duchess of Vokephonia, Meghan Markle, for her round-robin award for virtue signalling wokery.
I mean, what's this sham award she's getting for charity? She's admitted she does 1 hour a week. Oh, my goodness. Rebecca Reid, your Union Jackass nominee.
Mine is Danny Kruger, MP, for saying that the only basis for a safe and functioning society is a mother and a father who are still married. So apparently same-sex parents and single parents are contributing to an unsafe society, which as a single parent I think is one of the rudest things I've ever heard anyone say.
Here's a little bit of what Kruger had to say.
A normative family, held together by marriage, by mother and father sticking together for the sake of the children and the sake of their own parents and the sake of themselves. This is the only possible basis for a safe and successful society.
It bothered him when Boris Johnson was his bestie mate.
And I know
think Rebecca should win that, Dan.
If Calvin Robinson was here tonight, he'd be very much disagreeing with you.
No, I
No,
think
of course,
Calvin
it's
is a
got to be
sensible
Armand
person.
Bogle. It's got to be Armand Bogle. I'm sorry. Meghan Markle is the jackass because she's winning an award for her charity, even though she's admitted doing 1 hour charity work a week. It's ludicrous.
I'd give it to you, Rebecca.
Armand Bogle, Amanda Patel, Rebecca Reid, my superstar panel. Thank you so much for your company. Thank you for your company too. I'm back tomorrow from 9 p.m. Headliners is next. Good night.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I have walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You're watching GB News. The top story this hour, the Prime Minister has been addressing the Council of Europe, saying the world's most vulnerable people are paying the price for unlawful migration. He's been telling world leaders that the international system for policing human trafficking isn't working. That's as the government tries here at home to implement the illegal migration bill, which is currently going through the House of Lords. The new law aims to tackle small boat crossings, sending asylum seekers home or to a third country.
Illegal migration exploits the most vulnerable. It risks crowding out those with a genuine case for asylum. And it strains the trust that our citizens have, not just in our domestic borders, but in the international system. And that's why so many of us are already acting at the national level, and why we need to do more to cooperate across borders and across jurisdictions to end illegal migration and stop the boats.
Downing Street says the EU and the UK have agreed at the same meeting to strengthen their cooperation on international migration and the threat posed by Russia in Ukraine. Rishi Sunak and the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte have agreed to work together to build an international coalition to provide Ukraine with combat air capabilities, including supporting training to procuring F-16 fighter jets. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky joined the council via video link, and he stressed the urgency for stronger air power.
There is still much to be done. Ukraine's territory is big, and to make air defense results like last night's the rule throughout the country, we need additional air defense systems and missiles. We also need modern fighter jets, without which no air defense system will be perfect. And I'm sure we will get there.
This comes as South Africa's president says Russia and Ukraine have also agreed to meet African leaders to discuss a peace plan to end the war in Ukraine. The African leaders' peace mission is being backed by African leaders of Senegal, Uganda, Egypt, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia. President Zelensky has previously stated that all Russian troops must leave his country for any peace deal to take place. Now, in news here at home, 1 in 5 adults are apparently finding it difficult to pay bills and credit card repayments at the start of the year. That's according to the Financial Conduct Authority. People struggling this way has increased by 3.1 million since May last year. The number of adults who missed bills or loan payments in at least 3 of the previous 6 months have increased by 1.4 million from 4.2 million. And 2 poultry workers in England have tested positive for bird flu, although there are no signs of human-to-human transmission. Both cases are believed to be linked to the same farm. The UK Health Security Agency is running a programme of testing workers who've come into contact with the infected birds and have launched an investigation. Test results show one of the workers infected is likely to have been contaminated after inhaling the virus. It's unclear if the second person who was infected did so after inhalation or whether they were infected in some other